Opposition leaders and Western nations have denounced a so-called foreign influence law passed by Georgia's national parliament. Thousands of demonstrators have blocked a major traffic junction in the capital, Tbilisi. Critics fear the law will be used to stamp out dissent and will dent Georgia's hopes of joining the European Union. The legislation requires media and other groups to register as pursuing the interests of a foreign power if they get more than 20% of their funding from abroad. The European Union and the U.S. have criticized the law, saying it could jeopardize trade relations.
Protesters clash with riot police outside the parliament in Tbilisi. Thousands of people took to the streets to denounce the latest development in a controversial new law that they say pushes Georgia off its course towards EU membership, into the sphere of the Kremlin's influence.
I don't know why Putin or those Russian-funded government officials sitting in the parliament think that they're going to be the ones to take our freedom away from us, because we're Georgian, we're European, and we will always fight for our freedom.
We, all the people, we are standing here all day, every day, the students, older people, everyone is here, and the government doesn't care. We don't want Russia, we want Europe, and they just do whatever they want. They say that it's democracy, and this is like nothing like democracy. They're hitting people, they're being violent, I don't know.
If the foreign agent law passes, any media company or NGO that gets 20% or more of its funding from abroad will be obliged to register as pursuing the interests of a foreign power. Opponents call it authoritarian. But Georgia's Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze defended the bill put forward by his Georgian Dream Party.
Today is the most important day in terms of strengthening the independence and sovereignty of our country. The adoption of the law on transparency of foreign influence creates strong guarantees of long-term peace and tranquility in Georgia, and to overcome so-called polarization. It is a necessary condition for Georgia's integration into the European Union.
But these Georgians see it as exactly the opposite. Large demonstrations have been taking place for weeks on the streets of Tbilisi. And protesters say they won't stop until the law is overturned.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by our correspondent, Rosie Burchard, in Brussels. Rosie, how is the EU reacting to this development in Georgia?
Well, Terry, it took the EU quite a while to get a statement together. We were waiting since this law passed for an official on-the-record quote from Brussels, but we now have one, and they've been, I think, quite unequivocal in their condemnation of this law. This is a statement from the EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and the EU's Chief for Enlargement, so expanding the bloc. I'm going to read you some of this statement, which is really just hot off the press now. These two officials say that the EU has clearly and repeatedly stated that the spirit and content of this law are not in line with EU core norms and values, and that it will undermine the work of civil society. And they go on to say the choice on the way forward is in Georgia's hands, and that they urge the Georgian authorities to withdraw the law and uphold their commitments to their EU path. Now, what's interesting here, Terry, is that certainly does seem to me to be quite an unequivocal condemnation. However, what we did not get is a statement from the 27 EU members. Instead, we got it from these two high-ranking EU officials. And my understanding is that's because there was division among the EU's 27 members on exactly how to proceed, reportedly due to some opposition from Hungary. It's not the first time that Budapest is at odds with Brussels on this. So given those divisions, I think you can pretty much bet that this state of relations with Georgia will get top billing when EU foreign ministers meet later this month.
Can you explain for us, Rosie, how this bill could impact Georgia's prospects of joining the EU in concrete terms? Because it's a bit confusing with the Prime Minister of Georgia saying it's necessary for the country's integration in the EU. Protesters say it would wreck Georgia's chances of becoming an EU member. So what's the case?
Yeah, indeed, it might sound confusing with those two different points of view, but the EU has been pretty clear that this is taking Georgia off course in its path toward joining the European Union. Now, Georgia is officially a candidate for EU membership. It applied back in early 2022, hot on the heels of Ukraine, just after that full-scale Russian invasion. And then late last year, EU members decided to grant Georgia candidate status, but it came with strings attached. They said that in order to move forward and really be seen as a candidate moving toward the European Union, that includes an expectation that Georgia continues with reforms, for example, curbs on corruption and measures to try and really double down on democratic institutions in the country. Now, we've heard from the EU saying this is clearly an obstacle on that path, and I should be clear to say that joining the EU is never a swift process. It usually takes years, if not decades, but it seems that with this new law, which the EU is urging the Georgian government to withdraw, that indeed that could be an even bigger deviation on what is likely to be, in any case, a very long road toward a seat at the table here in Brussels.
Rosie, thank you very much. That was our correspondent, Rosie Burchard, in Brussels. Our reporter, Maria Katamadze, is in Tbilisi and joins us now. Maria, the protests have not stopped the bill from gaining parliamentary approval. Now that that controversial bill has passed Parliament, are the protests likely to stop?
Well, indeed, the protest movement here in Georgia is still continuing. The protest mood is still running high in the capital city, Tbilisi. Some of the protesters were detained yesterday, and some of the thousands of protesters still remain in custody. And one of the requests of the organizers of this protest is to free all of them. And they say they will not stop until the government reconsiders its decision to actually cancel this bill, even though the government doesn't show any intentions to do so at this point. The protesters say that they will not stop because this is a historic and crucial moment for their country when they have to fight for their democracy, for their future in the EU, as you heard that there in the report. So they say that now the problem, yes, it is the bill that they don't like, but the pro-Russian government, as they've been telling me, and they have to make more pressure on the government to try and stop them from steering them away from Europe towards Russia.
Now, the bill will go to President Salome Zourabichvili for final approval, I understand. But she says she will not sign it into law. So what happens next?
So the next stage is the bill goes to the president, and the president, the pro-Western president, Zourabichvili, she already voted that she will actually veto this bill, but keep in mind that president in this country has a very symbolic and ceremonial role. She doesn't have any power, actually, to stop this bill. But she is a supporter of the protesters. She, from the start, she sided with them, and the protesters see her as a leader that could actually help them to make some pressure on the government. But also what's important that the president said that she will unite the opposition, which is very fragmented in this country. There is a deep polarization going on in Georgia, and it's also a sign of how much of importance this bill holds, that the opposition that was so fragmented, they decided to unite as an unit front. They say that they're going to lead the pro-European movement with the leadership of their president, Salome Zourabichvili.
Maria, thank you very much. That was our correspondent, Maria Katamadze, in Tbilisi.
I'm here with the former Georgian president, Giorgi Margvelashvili, and the former ally of the Georgian Green Party. Mr. President, please tell us why you're here today.
Well, we have been all shocked, basically, not by the things that happened today, but the things that happened a couple of days ago when the leader of the Georgian Dream, Ivanishvili, came and he basically changed the course of Georgian historical development from west to north. He basically claimed that he argued that the West is the war party that is manipulating Georgian people. So he tried to change our historic course, and so this is the part of that story. And we are all here because we don't believe that, and we will not accept that, and we will overcome.
You mentioned Margvelashvili and you worked with him. You know him personally and you were part of his team. Tell us more about this man. Is he really linked to the Kremlin? What do you think?
I don't know where he is linked and what is his message, but I've been his friend and his ally when we were fighting against the previous government. But now he has definitely, and I don't know the reasons actually why he changed this, and I don't care about the reasons, but he changed the historic development of my country. That's it, blank. I don't care about it anymore. I mean, he has changed who we are and what we are for.
Is he a pro-Russian politician in Georgia?
He has done a definitely pro-Russian move. This is a pro-Russian move. So, yeah, he has committed himself to Sovietizing Georgia, to Russificating Georgia. So, yeah, that's where he is, unfortunately.
What's next for Georgia? What's going to happen next? Further protests?
We are going to fight and we will prevail, we will overcome.